All right, Proverbs 22, verse 2. Let's start there. Proverbs 22, 2. Who will read that for us? Go ahead, Ron.
The rich and the poor have this in common. The Lord is the maker of them all.
Okay. So one of the fundamental things we're looking at in the lesson is this idea that God made man, what man is, the nature of man, and therefore the behavior of man and the worldview of man. And here the proverb writer says rich and poor, so wealthy and those who aren't so. The Lord is the maker of them all. You can put anything in there, male and female. The Lord's maker of them all. The person who lives in Asia, the person who lives in Africa, the person who lives in North America, the Lord is maker of them all. God has made all people, and of course, we're made in the image of God, and that's question number 1 in the workbook, according to the Bible, what makes man unique? So let's go to Genesis chapter 1. Genesis 1. And let's read verses 26 and 27 here, please. Just Hank, you want to get that for us?
Then God said, "Let us make man in our own image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over all the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created male and female, he created them.
Okay. So it's very interesting to me, or I should ask this. 26 to 27, what do you see that's very interesting there?
See the emphasis of he created man in his likeness.
Oh.
It's mentioned there 3 times.
Okay. Again and again, it's mentioning his likeness, his image. Clint?
Indirectly, there's no natural hierarchy explained here. As God says to themselves, let us make man, and then they have dominion over animals, things of the earth. So it's God who's man, creeping things that have been created. So there's that hierarchy, and unfortunately, a lot of people have that twisted around sometimes. And not be too silly about it, but sometimes people care more about animals than they do about humans. And it's not the way it should be.
Yes, that is absolutely true. Any other thoughts there?
Well, we don't see any of the animals being made in the image of God. That's what makes me unique. And it says created male and female. So that it's not this body that we're talking about, the spirit.
Yeah, the internal part is that part which is the distinct nature made in the image of God. And how do we know that it's not our body? God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth. John 4, 23, 24. So God doesn't have a physical form. So when it says we're made in his image, it's not referring to the physical body, that which was made of the clay. As Genesis 2 goes on to explain about Adam being made of the dust of the ground, and of course Eve from Adam's rib, which means we're made from the same substance. Ultimately, we are of the same nature, man and woman, though having some distinctions between us, being made male and female, but made in the image of God. That which is truly us, that which we cannot see with the physical eye, is that which is made in the image of God, in his likeness. And it is that part of us that is made to have fellowship with God. Now, that doesn't mean that our body is not somehow connected to or tied into that relationship to God. Excuse me, in 1 Corinthians 6, at the end of the chapter, verse 20, talks about that you're bought at a price. Therefore, your body as well as your spirit belong to God. And so, the Christian belongs to God, both soul, that which we can't see, and the body, that which we can see, is to be devoted and dedicated to Him. Now then, something I wanted to come back to, Hank mentioning in the likeness, the image. Let's make man in our image. So in the image of God, He made them, created them male and female. It's interesting to me how there's passages in the Bible like this one that address a modern dispute, discussion, or denial of the truth, where it's the Holy Spirit. It's like the Holy Spirit looked down through time and saw, okay, in the 21st century America, they're going to have this debate, and I'm just going to hammer it home. Man is made in the image of God. In the image of God is made in Him, in the likeness of God. So it answers that question of our nature, of our uniqueness. Now, question number 4 had asked, what astounded the author of Psalm 8? So let's go to Psalm 8, and we're going to come back to Genesis 1 in just a moment. But Psalm 8, let's just read the entire psalm, please. Psalm 8, 1 through 9. Who will get that for us? Mike?
O Lord our God, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have displayed your splendor above the heavens. From the mouths of infants and nursing babes you have established strength. Because of your adversaries, you make the enemy and the revengeful cease. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have ordained. What is man that you take thought of him, and the son of man that you care for him? Yet you have made him a little lower than God, and you crown him with glory and majesty. You make him to rule over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the heavens, and the fish of the sea, whatever passes through the paths of the sea. O Lord our God, how majestic is your name in all the earth.
Okay, so the question was, what astounded the author of this psalm? Go ahead.
How important man is in all of creation, and the importance that God puts upon man.
Okay, so when we consider this creation, what are we talking about? What does he reference here? What's he putting in contrast to man? Okay. Verse 3, when I consider your heavens, then he says, the moon, the stars, which you have ordained. So, how do you picture the setting, the mindset of this psalm? Where is he? What's going on? Now, he may not have written it at that time, but where's his mind when he's writing this? Okay, wonders. So is he? Okay, that's what I want to get at. He's not on a noonday stroll. He didn't wake up from an afternoon siesta and look up and see the blue sky. As beautiful as it is, that's not what's happening. It's nighttime. Excuse me. And he's observing the universe with the stars, the planets, all those things that are out there. I'm not sure how many of you have had the opportunity to be in a place where you can see more than just what you typically see around here. Around here, it is pretty, and often at night when I take the dog outside, look up, that's all that I'm doing. I'm just looking up at the stars. And it's beautiful. But there are places on the planet where you can go where there's zero light pollution, and little in the atmosphere to disturb your view of the heavens, and you can see the Milky Way galaxy. You can, and it's unlike anything that's like around here.
Middle East especially, it looks like you're reach up and touch it in the desert at night. That's there's no light, it's zero light.
And there's low humidity, so there's no like pollutants, nothing up there. Yeah.
It looks, it's so clear at night, it's, you can, they navigate it, that's how you navigate in the desert. You're above the stars.
Yeah. Anybody else been in a place or situation to see it like that? Yeah, I was on an island in Australia one time, and out there at night, it's like it's hard to even describe, but that's how I picture him looking up and overwhelmed with the majesty of the creation. And it is overwhelming. And there are other senses in the creation where you can get that. You go to the Grand Canyon, something like that, or even standing at the ocean, observing the beauty of the ocean. Even up in the North Carolina mountains at times, it's majestic. And the psalmist says, with all of this, all this beauty, all this grandeur, why are you mindful of man? Why do you think about us? Well, why does God think about us? Why is he mindful of man? Where is creation? We are eternal because we have that image, that likeness of God. Anything else? He loves us. We can love him back. Why were all the stars made? For us. Wasn't made for God. He didn't need the stars. The whole universe, the solar system, this planet, everything is here for us. So we would inhabit this universe and stand in awe of the creation and know clearly, just by observing creation, there's a God. Now, to know him, to understand him, we have to go to his word. He had to reveal himself to us, but we can know there's a God by the creation. That's why it's all there, to overwhelm us. Just like the psalmist is saying, I see all of this. Why are you mindful of me?
The stars gives us navigation, it gives us changing of the seasons, it gives us so much that we don't even comprehend anymore because we forgot how
Yeah. Yes. And Mike.
The precision of it that we see, to Nate's point, but also whenever we go to a waterfall or something like that, I mean, you have artists that paint waterfalls because of the beauty of it. We feel it, on the inside. But every other animal that comes along, the deer and every other animal, they just break it. It's nothing more than a water source. And they don't sit there in awe the way that we do.
They don't sit and reflect. Sun, moon, stars, waterfall. Why do you care about me? Right? God cares about us because he made us to be in fellowship with him. And that's why we have his nature. Chris?
I think God's love for us is something that we truly can't understand. But we know he sent his only son to die for us. The creator sent his son to die for us. That's how much he loves us. That's something it's hard to wrap.
Yes, that's the ultimate gift, the ultimate expression of love is sending his son to die for our sins. Let's go to Psalm 139. Psalm 139, verses 13 and 14. Who will read that for us? Go ahead, Jim.
For you formed my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. Well, I will praise you,
Okay. So this idea of a human being being fearfully and wonderfully made. It's very interesting. Just in the past day or so, I think it is. I think it was General Dynamics came out with a humanoid robot. They just revealed they've got this humanoid robot, and it's kind of freaky to see the thing, but it's nowhere near as amazing and complicated as a human being. They try to mimic it, and men have been trying to do this a very long time, and there's people who are foolish enough to think they can make something that is like a human. It can't be done, it'll never be done. Because we're fearfully and wonderfully made. We don't know everything there is to know about the universe. It's so interesting to me how that the better our technology gets and the further we can see out into the universe, even launching, these powerful telescopes into the universe, trying to peer back to the beginning of time. It's like, wait, the more powerful it is, the more there is out there. We can't see the edge of the universe, and we never will. It's just not going to happen. In medical science, they don't understand the human body. They're guessing at it. And I guarantee you we could talk to several people in here and say, yeah, my doctor's just guessing. My doctor hadn't figured out what's going on or how to fix it, or, they're just kind of hacking away at it. Well, we're not going to figure out the human body because we're not God. And we can learn some things, but we're not going to have the ultimate knowledge of it. We are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God, the soul, and then God making that body. That's an amazing machine. Now let's go back to Genesis chapter 1, and question number 2 had asked, how does Genesis 1:26-31 distinguish man from the rest of God's animal creation? What I want to do here is read Genesis 1 verses 28-30. 28 to 30. Who will get that for us? Go ahead, Clint.
God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And every beast of the earth, and every bird of the heavens, everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so.
Okay, so just in these 3 verses, what's the distinction between man and animal? Man has dominion, something Clint had mentioned a while ago. We're going to get to that in just a second. Yeah. So man has dominion over the face of the earth. So translate that for me, or what is, in reality, what's that saying? Maybe another way to describe it, Clint.
You actually have also subdue it and have dominion. So it's take control of it and keep control. These things that I have created for you are a resource, not just for food, though that's very evident. But we've used animal products for all kinds of clothing, medicines, you name it.
How about trees for your house? How about trees to burn in your wood stove or a campfire?
It talks about the seeds. You replace what you.
How about cutting down acres of trees to clear out for a building or a highway or a field, or just because you want the view? It's ours. He gave it to us. So go. Have dominion over it. It's yours to subdue and to use. I was thinking about this when I was reflecting on this lesson. I'm not sure. Now, you may be like, I don't know, you're kind of crazy. I'm not sure there's anything that's either not renewable or replenishable. Anything. Like, they supposedly the petrol in the ground is fossil fuels. It's not. It's hydrocarbons. And they've proved, and I've seen a lot of this over the past 6 months or so, it's basically the pressure of the earth, the crust, and everything up under there. And I don't understand all that, but basically the earth makes oil. It's not a finite resource. It makes it. It's there. It's being replenished all the time. Air can be filtered and is filtered. Water is filtered. Right? Trees planted, seeds. We can grow more. Grass or whatever. Animals. They breathe. They make more. It's all just, it's here. And it's not like 6 billion, 7 billion, 8 billion, 20 billion people are going to run out of stuff. Because he made us to live here. And he wasn't ignorant of the fact of how many people are going to be here and what we need. It's all here. It's for us to subdue. There's food there. So go to Genesis chapter 9. Genesis 9, because there's an interesting thing that God reveals to Noah here. Remember, Noah's survived the flood. He's come out of the ark, offered up a sacrifice to God. Genesis 9, verses 1 through 4. Who will read that for us? Micah.
God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And the fear of you and the good of you shall be on every beast of the earth, on every bird of the air, on all that move on the earth, and on all the fishes that are given into your hand. Every morning thing, every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. I give you all things, even as you do yours. But you shall not eat flesh of its life, that is, its flesh.
Okay. So God says, okay, whatever you want to eat, go eat it. It's yours. You can get it. You can cook it. You can get it down the hatch. It's yours. But don't eat it with life in the blood. So there's a limitation on the condition of it. Right? Blood needs to be drained out. Levitical law goes through a lot of different things the Israelites had to observe. When you come to 1 Timothy chapter 4 in particular, as he's talking there about things to eat. In Acts chapter 10, where Peter sees the vision. In the New Testament, those regulations for the Jews have been removed, so we can eat pork, we can eat catfish, if that's your thing. We can eat whatever we want to do. Give thanks to God. It's ours to eat. It's here. It's us. It's for our use. So we're different from the animals because the earth is ours. They're here for us. We're not here for them. They're to serve our needs and not the other way around. And so James chapter 3, verse 9. So thinking about still man being made in the image of God, it has an implication. James 3, verse 9. Who will read this? This is talking about the tongue, use of the tongue. James 3, 9. Elijah.
With it, we bless our God and Father, with it we curse it, who have been made in the similitude of God.
And verse 10, go ahead.
Out of the same mouth proceed blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not to be so.
Okay, so it's interesting to me here that James anchors his argument in whether we bless or curse someone in the idea of a man being made in the similitude of God. And we can't abuse our fellow man in that way because man's been made in the similitude of God. He comes back, verse 10, my brethren, these things ought not to be so. So since we've been made in the image of God, it regulates how we look at one another, our attitudes toward each other, and our behavior toward each other. If we've not been made in the similitude of God, there's no regulation. There's no restriction on how we treat each other, other than what I want or what you want. Mike?
We were talking about verse 7, there, you talk about how he named all the beasts of the land. But what's on the inside of man, that tongue? That's
Right. Right, exactly. It's a real challenge for us. So, question number 5 in the workbook, it had asked, what presupposition underlines the materialistic worldview? Okay, that's kind of a wordy way to say, why is it that atheists look at the world the way they do? And it's inherent in the name atheist. What underlies the materialistic worldview?
Well, their worldview eliminates God from their decision making altogether. So therefore, it's left up to their own goodwill and imaginations and supposition and conjecture.
Yes. So, no God. Man is here literally by accident, just by some astronomical random happenstance. Human beings, Homo sapiens, came to be. And so the behavior toward each other is radically altered. So question 6 is, according to Darwinian thought, how is man distinguished from other animals? So with that idea, no God, we're just accidentally here. How is man, in the Darwinian view, the evolutionist, humanist, secularist view, how do we differ from animals? We don't, essentially.
Well, in their view, they look at man, as they do the overall being, and that is of random evolutionary evolvement. And with that, man has evolved further in this than animals. And within that thought, they also have this idea of evolutionary spurt theory. And within that, they say that, in the fossil record, you don't see anything because there wasn't a spurt of evolutionary activity, and then you see an abundance of life. So they have come up with all these ways of supporting their theory.
Okay.
It's not that you look at the evidence and then you develop a theory. They have a theory and then they try to distort the evidence.
Okay. So Ron used a key word there that I'm going to substitute, something that they come up with. They make up whatever they can to fit what they see out there, to massage it, to fit their overall idea, to be able to eliminate God out of the picture. So they see man as a highly developed evolutionary product of evolution, but as the workbook pointed out, says who? How are we more highly evolved than anything else? I mean, if you're saying it's all just random circumstances, there is no absolute truth, then how do I know that I am the most highly evolved thing? How do we know that dolphins are the most highly evolved thing on the planet? Or that actually worms are better off because they're such simple creatures? Why would we evolve to this point? I mean, we're complicated, right? Worms not complicated. We are very complicated. Is that really? And we attack each other. We kill each other. You ever heard of worm wars? I mean, maybe there's somebody probably knows about it. It's going to be like, yeah, actually, there are different kinds of worms that go at it. But I mean, who says, if you eliminate God out of it, who says we're what we are supposed to be? Was there something else, Ron, that you had?
Well, as you were saying that, I was thinking about what Gallagher also wrote, that within man, then you are free also to make judgment upon which man is more superior than another, which, as you may want to lead into later on, but that has led to, the things that we know, particularly after Darwinian's theories were put out. It wasn't much longer than that, and we saw the things that were happening in Europe.
Yes.
World War I, World War II, to eliminate an entire race or group of people.
Right. And we have a new evolution of that today. And I use that in an accommodative sense, a new iteration of all that we're talking about here. I want to get to that. So bear with me as we plow some ground now. So Darwinian thought is man's just maybe at best a more highly developed evolutionary being, creature that's happened to come about. We're barely different than certain types of monkeys. And we're just a different branch on the evolutionary tree of life. That's all that it is. So this is a book written by a Christian who had a debate with an atheist saying that there is no God. And he went in here and after the debate, he explained things more deeply. But some of the quotes that he has in here is what I want to read. So this is a quote from Charles Darwin. A man who has no assured and ever-present belief in the existence of a personal God or a future existence with retribution or reward can have for his rule of life, as far as I can see, only to follow those impulses and instincts which are the strongest or which seem to him the best ones. So if you don't believe in a God, you don't believe in future punishment or future reward, then whatever's your strongest impulse or instinct, and if you can act on that, then that's your rule of life. That's the logical implication of no God. And we're just here by accident. All right, so here's a comment from a guy by the name of James Rachels. He's an evolutionist, Darwinian kind of guy. And he says this is the true moral implication of evolution. A revised view of such matters as suicide and euthanasia, as well as a revised view of how we should treat animals, will result. Clint mentioned a while ago, I think it was, about how we look at animals. You know, I think it's still true in California. If you mess with an eagle's egg, you go to prison. If you abort a baby, good. Which makes no sense whatsoever. But that's their view. All right, the same man, James Rachel, argues certain people may be used as laboratory subjects or food. I got to read this quote. Okay. Now follow with me here. Some unfortunate humans, perhaps because they have suffered brain damage, are not rational agents. What are we to say about them? The natural conclusion, according to the doctrine we are considering, would be that their status is that of mere animals. And perhaps we should go on to conclude that they may be used as non-human animals are used, perhaps as laboratory subjects or as food. So somebody's brain damage, no different than that cow out there in the pasture. And you just experiment on them or you eat them. Okay, you think that's a fringe view. It's really not among more and more atheistic people. Yep. Okay. Now here's kind of where the rubber meets the road in modern times. This used to be considered in our society a conspiracy theory. It's very, very real. And God's ultimately in control. Let me preface it with this. God's ultimately in control. Okay? But this is their viewpoint. This is their worldview, their mindset that drives their agenda and their actions. Okay? It's on depopulation rationale, to depopulate the earth. Okay? So this guy is Dr. Eric R. Pianka, Pianka of the University of Texas. He gave a keynote speech, because he was awarded like Scientist of the Year for Texas Scientists Association. He gave this speech in Beaumont, Texas in 2006. And he argued that the world needs to be depopulated by 90%. And the best way he could think of that being achieved is through the Ebola virus, because it's airborne and kills in days instead of years. there literally are people in positions of power that believe the world needs to be depopulated because humans are an infection in this world and soaking up all the resources, and we won't survive if we continue to multiply. What did God say at the very beginning? He said it to Moses and to Noah. He told it to the children of Israel. What are we to do? Be fruitful and multiply. Right. They're saying, no, that's bad. So when you look at these things, you see they go exactly the opposite of what God says.
And if you look at it, those people that say and kind of push that agenda, they're not talking about themselves.
No, they're exempted.
Yeah, they're intellectual above us. And we don't have it.
Jim?
Pacific Northwest, twice, it's been public law that you can basically kill elderly, infirm people.
Okay. So this matter of euthanasia or assisted suicide, Canada, in the Northwest, Washington, Oregon, they have laws on the books that allow that kind of thing to happen. Canada as a nation has gone to that point. In fact, I recently saw a case of where a woman was injured, severely debilitated by a recent vaccine, and is one that was pushed on her. They said, oh, sorry, but you can take advantage of our MAID program, which is medically assisted suicide. We'll allow that to relieve your suffering. Okay? These people don't value human life, is what we're seeing. When you have that worldview of we're just another evolved creature, there's too many of us and it's a problem soaking up resources. Well, we don't have enough to care for those who are, severely infirm, mentally ill, the people who are older and losing their ability to actually be productive. They're just sucking resources out of society. Well, let's just kill them. Let's get rid of them. So they're not sucking those resources out. Thank you.
I read an article a couple of days ago. 28-year-old woman in Netherlands, somewhere like that, somewhere around the world. She's wanting assisted suicide. She's physically healthy, but she just don't want to live in this world.
It's a shame. It's a shame. So, of course, this carries over into abortion at the beginning of life. One of the things they argue is the idea that embryos cannot suffer, because they say, well, when does the nervous system actually develop? Well, it's not going to hurt them, so just get rid of them. Or they suffer very little, and who's to say really what's going on with a fetus, which I utterly hate that term. It's a baby. There's a moral philosopher in Australia by the name of Peter Singer, and he's made the news at various times. But he argues that killing a child with hemophilia after being born is no different than aborting it before being born. So he says, look, we have these medical tests for babies in the womb, and it says that it has Downs or it has hemophilia or it has this other terrible disease, and their quality of life is going to be terrible. They're going to be sick all their life, and they probably won't live long anyway. And so we already, as a society, rationalize, well, we can kill them. Well, what's the difference in they're born and we watch them for a week or two or a month, and they really do have problems, so let's do away with them. That's his argument. And you know what? It's logical. It's logical. That's the bad part of it. Why not? So he says that she give time after birth. He says killing a disabled infant is not morally equivalent to killing a person. Now, listen, he said a disabled infant is not morally equivalent to killing a person. Very often it is not wrong at all. So question number 9, how could a materialist determine that mankind is the most highly evolved of all species? How can they determine that we are the most highly evolved? Like, do what? Hey, we're just going to say it is. But rationally, logically, they can't. Okay? So human life is distinct from every other life and is highly valued. I want to ask you, what Bible passages, accounts, and places that we can look at in the Word of God show that human life is valuable? Can you think of a passage where that's declaring the value of human life? Besides Genesis 1, we've looked at that. Ron.
One, of course, is John 3:16, because God so loved us that he sent his only begotten Son. And so that is a level of demonstration of how God values us. And
We're more than just the physical body in that, and so we are highly valuable. Very good.
And we are to have natural affection one for another. And we read that throughout the Word of God. And it, as you were mentioning, Stephen, that's one of the things that has been eradicated. Mothers have no natural affection for their children, and the same is true for fathers. And so that's something God has said, and I believe is part of man, that we do have love for humanity. We suppress it like our conscience. We sear it with a hot iron that we have no sensitivity to it. And that's what happens. And we also understand that in Matthew 22:39, to love your neighbor.
Yes.
Natural affection.
Matthew 22:39, love your neighbor. Others. Philip.
Leviticus 24:21. And whoever kills an animal shall restore it, but whoever kills a man shall be put to death.
Okay. Right there is a declaration of the distinction between the value of human life and animal life. The law of Moses, which is the best law ever given for a nation, it was religious and civil law combined. But that says there's a penalty, financial penalty, for an animal if you kill it, but for a human, it's your life. In Genesis chapter 9, talking about whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. That's a declaration of the value of human life. It's not a denigration of it, it's an affirmation of it. Other passages that just scream, here's the value of human life. Paul?
John the Baptist leaped in the womb.
Okay, he is life. He was a babe in the womb of Elizabeth at that time. And so there's life. How about Exodus chapter 1? Did you have something, Micah? Exodus chapter 1. Y'all remember here in Exodus 1, beginning there in verse 15? Remember the Egyptians were worried about the Hebrews who were multiplying, and they thought they're going to throw in with our enemies. And what was it that the Pharaoh told the midwives to do? Verse 16. Kill the baby boys, right? What did the midwives do? Did the midwives kill the baby boys? No, they did not kill the baby boys, and they gave an excuse to Pharaoh. Exodus 1, verses 20 and 21. Who will read that for us? Exodus 1, 20 and 21.
Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew very mighty. So it was because the midwives feared God and divided households.
Okay. God saw that as good. You spared those baby boys, he's looking out for them. Go to Exodus chapter 21 with me. Exodus 21, and notice verses 22 to 25. If you get somebody to read that for us quickly. Go ahead, Philip.
The midwife heard a woman with child, so that she gives birth prematurely, yet no harm follows. He shall surely be punished accordingly
Okay. So they're fighting, and the woman loses the child dies, life for life. That's showing the value of human life, even of the baby's life. Let's jump to Leviticus. Leviticus chapter 19. Leviticus 19 and verse 14. How does God view the disabled, the physically handicapped? Leviticus 19 verse 14. Who's got that? Go, Ron.
You shall not curse the deaf, nor put a stumbling block before the blind, but shall fear your God. I am the Lord.
And jump down to verse 34, please. 32, I'm sorry, 32.
You shall rise before the gray-headed and honor the presence of an old man and fear your God. I am the Lord.
So the blind, the deaf, and the old, you need to respect them. Not kill them, not eliminate them, not try to get rid of them. Respect them because they're made in the image of God. They are valuable human beings. It's interesting to me in the book of Jonah, when Jonah gets on the ship and he heads off the other way, trying to run away from God, the storm stirs up. Do you remember what the rest of those men did on the boat? Jonah was sleeping. You remember the story? They were praying. Who were they praying to, the rest of those people? Their own gods. And they went and they woke up Jonah and they said, you need to pray to your God. And then they decided, whose fault is it? And Jonah says, yep, it's my fault. And what did he tell them to do? Throw me overboard. What'd they do? No, we got to try harder to get to shore. Those pagans understood his life had value. And you can't just toss a man overboard. I mean, if there's ever a situation where situational ethics comes up and you think you're all about to die, and this guy says, hey, you can get rid of me and everything will be okay. The atheists of these arguments that we've read now would be like, off he goes. But they wouldn't do it because they understood there's something unique about this human life. If it was a fish, if it was a horse or a mule or something, they would have chunked him over. But not Jonah. It was only after they had no progress and remember, they prayed to God, please don't hold this against us. And then threw him overboard, right? You can see it in the Roman Empire. We're studying about, I think you need to ring that. We're studying about, Jesus and the Jews taking him to have him put to death. The Roman Empire reserved the right of the death penalty for the Roman government. They didn't tell the people, look, if you want to kill a cow, you got to come to us. But they did say, if you want to kill a person, you have to come to us. Because even those societies recognize there's something different about humanity that's radically different than any other life. Mike.
Look at Acts chapter 16, Paul said, do not harm yourself. Had he fallen on that sword at that time, where would he be right now? To this day. And yet Paul had enough care and concern for him to say, do not do that. He could escape from prison at that moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows a great care and concern for him.
Yeah, and it also, to Hank's point just a minute ago, and to other things we've touched on here, you look at the book of Job and look at all that Job went through. Is there any indication at all that he said, you know what, I just need to end it all? I just need to... None at all.
He makes a statement when his wife told him to curse God.
Yeah, you speak as one of the foolish women speak. That's not how you deal with adversity. You don't turn against God and just give up. You continue to have faith. Yeah. All right. That's all we've got for tonight. Thank y'all, Lord willing. Lesson 16 next week. And it's an interesting one. Eschatology.